Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Get More from Twilio webinar. My name is Tim McLean. I'm the Director of Marketing. Really excited to be joined today by Andy Constantino, who I can't believe I found a hole in your calendar, Andy, our sales
Thank you.
engineer. Andy, welcome in.
Thank you.
I won't keep you too long. I know you're super busy. But it's really important that we wanted to get everybody together to talk about something that I think a lot of folks that are developing applications with Twilio, as well as sort of the other flavors of things that are like Twilio, like our friends at SignalWire, a bunch of other platforms. What this thing called BYOC means and kind of how advantageous, it can be to anybody who's developing an application. So with that, Andy, we'll just go ahead and step right in. So I'd love, Andy, if you could give us the lay of the land. Like, I think that everybody understands Twilio's the 800-pound gorilla of a communication platform as a service. They have a platform, but then there's this carrier layer, right? And the two work together.
That is correct. If you think about it this way, Twilio is an excellent, almost zero cost entry into the marketplace, meaning that you don't have to buy hardware. All you have to be able to do is some simple code and create your application on their platform. The advantage of this is huge if you're a small company trying to get started. However, what you really want to be able to do is decouple it and be able to use other carriers because you are negotiating for platform time. You would be negotiating for incoming phone calls and DIDs and outbound phone calls. And at Commio, we can show you and help you do that. That way that you are taking advantage and not only getting the best deal on the platform that you've been able to secure, but also be able to get your telecom down to a reasonable cost and down to where you control it.
Yeah, well said, Andy. I think people don't get this, well, unless they've gone through this experience, I don't think they understand that, Twilio is a platform that has what we would call a black box carrier layer of we don't know who they are, they're
That's
very
right.
expensive, and if you're small, it's not a problem. Like most people have a smallish application of some kind, and Twilio works just fine. And we hear this all the time, Andy. You and I are on the calls where the minute that is needs to scale, like if you want to go for more
Right.
than one or two calls per second, or the small amount of texting that you're able to do, all of a sudden you're confronted with this massive bill, and you're like, well, now what do I do? And I think a lot of people sort of, they sort of freak out a little bit about it. And they're like, I
Sure.
don't know what to do about it. And what's great is, and you can go right into Twilio's backend, look at their APIs, look at all their documentation, and you will find an entire section called Twilio BYOC. And bring your own carrier is for exactly this purpose. You start to scale. We've heard quotes of many thousands of dollars for some of these folks to get to 20, 30, 40 calls per second, whatever they need, right? And you're able to bring in somebody like Commio, plug it in. It's very simple. We'll get into that in just a minute. And get all the scale that you need. And miraculously, you end up at the end of the day saving sometimes 50 to 70% on your telecom costs. So it's a big deal. It's a
It,
really
it's
big
not
deal.
it's not just about saving.
Hmm.
It's about getting a quality customer experience. And the
Yeah.
quality of customer experience that I'm referring to is being able to deliver your call, receive your call with that's crystal clear and that you can control it. If you have an issue, you can control on the Commio platform, for example, you can control the carriers that you're using. On the
Yeah.
Twilio platform, the only thing you can control is sending it to their carriers or a carrier you brought yourself, and then you're working with a carrier like Commio.
Yeah.
So you can really affect the quality of your call.
That's right. Absolutely. And I mean, I know you just said it's not all about cost savings, but there is a nice cost savings side benefit to
Absolutely.
this. And if you look at this together, you can really see, Twilio on its own publishes their rates. We publish our rates, and you can see that on average, especially for, when you're scaling up the outbound voice. I mean, the average savings we see is between 30 and 50% for most of our customers who decide to add Commio to Twilio. That's the other important thing, Andy, is, we're not talking about like a pro and a con, like you should leave Twilio and come to Commio. Not at all. In fact,
That's correct.
we want you to stay with Twilio. But as you scale, this is the add-on, the connect piece where when you get to a certain point, absolutely keep using them. Make sure that, the platform, we know you love the platform, great. Stay with the platform. But you can switch over. And like I said, you can actually go to this link and we'll provide it to everybody who registered for the webinar and actually put in your act. Like what we want you to do is find your Twilio invoice from last month, punch in all the numbers, and you will instantly literally see how much you would have spent, not just sending everything to Twilio, but if you had Twilio plus Commio. And it's pretty exciting, when people realize this and they see that they can add not only savings, but also control and get all the tools that they need to trace calls. And if they do have an issue, because we know that not every carrier is great everywhere all the time, that they can literally go down to a very granular level and turn a carrier on and off in a specific location or area code and allow calls to continue to flow, which again is news to many people, even though we've been doing this for quite a long time. So the good news, Andy, as you know, is that 90% of platforms out there support something like bring your own carrier to Twilio, just general BYOC. So Microsoft Teams, where we integrate with them as well. A lot of companies are using Microsoft Teams through Operator Connect. Zoom Phone, Ring Central, Cisco 8x8 does not, unfortunately, or Amazon Connect, but everybody else does. Even Genesis, of course, Twilio does. So, it's something that's been out there for quite a while that a lot of people don't really know about. And again, if you look at the CPaaS, layer, look at all these folks that also support this. So this is not new, but I think it is news to a lot of platform developers who haven't reached the critical inflection point of their traffic. And you can see it right here.
That is
So,
correct.
and you've already enunciated this, Andy, but just real quick, like it really is all about call quality, right? It's intelligent call routing. You have direct control so that the calls sound better and that more of them get delivered, right?
That is correct. If you think about delivering a call on the outbound side, for example, on the Commio platform, we have 40 carriers. And if you're sending an outbound call, you get to know not only that it hit Commio, but which terminating carrier it went to. What's important about that is you'll know if there is an issue or if there's a problem, you'll be able to identify that carrier and take action. And you'll be able to take it yourself. However, if you don't feel like comfortable with it or what have you, our customer service, customer success team, our network operations center can both assist you with that.
Yeah, very good. And the other thing, yeah, like I said, the thing that people don't also understand is if the calls stop flowing, what can you do about it? So disaster recovery, both dynamic, but also direct control of the carrier layer is so important to recovering both on the inbound and the outbound side. And that's something that we can help with that a lot of other folks that provide this service can't. And as well as access to more than 10 million phone numbers, or of course, as they're known, DIDs. That inventory also can help you get the numbers that you need, no matter what you're trying to do, with local domestic numbers or even toll free.
So think
Huge.
about that 10 million numbers. It's not 10 million in one location. It is 95% of the one plus numbering plan. So it is a distribution across the one plus numbering plan. It's a huge footprint, virtually covering every available area you could think of.
That's right. And the good news, as you know, Andy, because you've heard it, is when people say, you know what, I'm having trouble finding kind of enough numbers or the right numbers in a given location. And we actually place special orders all the time.
That is
So
correct.
we can order numbers just as well as Verizon, AT&T, any of the big carriers, and all the locations that you mentioned. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So the other thing, it's kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room too, is support. So we know that unfortunately, some of these platforms are not known for their responsive support. And when your app goes down, you're not able to send or receive calls or any communications. It's really a challenge to get somebody to help. So what's good is when you do a bring your own carrier solution, for instance, like Commio, You get access to our 24/7 US-based support. We educate you about compliance, rules, and regulations. There's no extra charge for this. And not only do you get the software control in the platform, but you get the real human engineer help that you need when things potentially have an issue. So when there's a service interruption, you have some place to go. That's a pretty big deal, right, Andy?
That's right, Tim. I
Yeah.
think really when you're talking about being able to get in and on that support layer, there's a lot of control you can take with just the BYOC that you really can move around and make the best of a bad situation with maybe there's something going on with Twilio and you want to redirect a number to another location. By being on our platform with the DID on our platform, you'd be able to do that.
That's right. That's right. Even with the built-in follow the sun rules, because we know we've got a lot of folks that are using IVRs and in contact
Right.
centers, you can literally move entire blocks, to multiple destinations automatically on a schedule. Yeah. It's interesting, Eddie, the more, we've done so many of these webinars. It's just amazing to me when we get somebody who listens to this for the first time. They almost don't believe it, do they? Because
That,
they've never
that's
had,
right.
they don't even knew that anything like this existed.
And
Um,
that really makes
so
the demonstration powerful. When we
it
have that
does.
customer on the line and we're talking to them and we're actually showing them the platform.
Yeah. I think one great example is our friends at Service Titan, Andy, and I think their contacts kind of had the same response when they first heard from us, but it was hard for them to, I think, wrap their head around this level of control. And now they log into the platform multiple times a day. And the reason is, if you're not familiar, Service Titan is a platform. They have their own platform that they built for HVAC contractors, plumbing, electrical. These guys are out in the field, okay? And guess what? They're out in the field in rural markets. And we all know that if you're in a major city, you probably have a few options with a couple of the big providers out there from a voice perspective that you're going to be able to deliver calls in an urban market pretty readily. But once you get a few miles outside of town in some of these smaller states, a lot of these sort of carrier networks break down. And, imagine then what happens when you have a plumbing contractor trying to reach their customers for visits today and they can't get through. And originally, Service Titan just had to file tickets and wait for their upstream carrier to do something about it or not do something about it. And it would take days and days and days. In a lot of cases, they wouldn't hear anything back. Or if they did, oh, don't worry, it's all fixed. And they had zero visibility. So now with us, they turned us on inside of Service Titan. And when they hear from a customer that's having call delivery or quality issues in a small market, they can actually log in and put a little tweak inside of their routing profile that will take a certain carrier in a certain location out of route for a couple hours, couple days, whatever they want, and allow other carriers to step in and complete those calls. And they've seen their uptime and their dynamic failover rate, skyrocket in the best possible way. And there's a reason they love us so much. This is what it's all about control. And we want to continue this conversation. So we wanted to just use this webinar, Andy, to give people a high level overview of, you probably didn't know this existed. Now you do. You know that it works with CPaaS platforms of all kinds. That's great. You've gotten a taste for what Commio can give you from a benefits perspective as well as savings. But we've got two more shorter webinars coming up as well that I think will be fun, where I want you to be able to walk us through, hey, how can
Uh,
you use Commio for inbound voice with Twilio, and then let's do outbound voice.
sure.
And we're going to have a new ebook to share. So we really recommend anybody who's on this call to register for those additional webinars. We'll walk through all that, and then you get sort of the from soup to nuts view of Twilio and how to use it. So those are coming up. And I want to
Look
say too, it
forward to
looks
it.
yeah, it looks like we've had a couple of questions, Andy, just a few, and then we'll let people go for the day and we'll move on to the next two. But um, really interesting choice. They say, yeah, this seems like 40 carriers sounds like maybe too many. How much redundancy do I really need? That's a great question. Sounds
That
like a
is a
lot.
that
Yeah,
is a great question. And what 40 carriers allows you to do, one is it allows you to use the tier one providers, which we have in our lineup as well. But it also allows you to use carriers that might be more regionalized, might have a better rate and a location to where you can really kind of control where your calling costs are. The other thing is, even though they're tier one carriers, they may not reach everywhere. So there may be very specific locations, rural or otherwise, that these tier one or higher level carriers can't reach that maybe some of these smaller carriers can help you reach.
Mhm.
And that's really what it's about. It's about making sure that every call that you make has the opportunity to be completed. And with this many carriers, we feel like that level of redundancy gives us not only coverage in the major markets, but also in the smaller markets as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, another question came in also from James. He says, what exactly is inbound redundancy? Again, this is probably something else, Andy. If they haven't heard of bring your own carrier, they probably have never heard of inbound redundancy, have they?
That's correct. I would take and characterize inbound redundancy as this. If you could think about how an inbound call is created, it is actually because we have our own carrier ID, we have our carrier ID assigned to underlying networks. As Commio is a company, we have our carrier ID assigned to multiple networks. And because of that, if you have an issue, and I'm going to say Raleigh, North Carolina, if you have an issue in Raleigh, North Carolina with a customer we can't deliver their numbers to them because of the underlying carrier, we can move them to another underlying carrier immediately.
Hmm.
We don't have to wait the port process or any of those things because we control not only that number with as on our network, we also control the underlying networks as well. So we can put whatever number we want on whatever network we want. And that really does put us in a position to be able to avoid um, regional outages for a
Yeah,
customer. And
right.
it's really quite a fascinating thing. And nobody else is doing that right now.
That's right. Yeah, the way I think of it too, Andy, the simplistic version is I imagine if I'm sitting inside of a call center and suddenly literally the phones stop ringing, right? So they have a
Right.
couple major numbers and they're like, "Hey, we're not getting any calls. What's going on?" And they figure out that carrier X, Y, or Z is having an outage right now, a service interruption. What do we do? Well, but most cases, they file a ticket and they wait for things to get fixed. And in our case, you're able to work directly with Commio support and say, "Hey, my phone stopped ringing. Help me out." And we literally can flip the switch and move your inbound from one provider to another without having to file any paperwork or wait or any, all that stuff. No LOAs. And all of a sudden, your phones can start ringing again in minutes instead of hours or days. It's pretty impressive. Yeah,
Yes, I
that's
agree.
great.
That is a very simple way to say it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, Andy, thank you. We wanted to keep this short. I'm glad we did. I think the overview was good, and I'm excited to go in to more detail about how to set up inbound voice, and then we'll do outbound voice in the next two webinars. But with that, I want to say thanks for everybody joining today, and keep those questions coming. Reply to this email if you're watching this after the recording was sent, and watch your inbox too for some additional follow up when we have our Twilio ebook, which is in production as we speak. So, Andy, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Building amazing experiences that engage and delight your customers is easy with Commio. Our smart, reliable voice and messaging solutions are easy to implement and scale with you so you can deliver more calls and texts, be more competitive, and save money. With Commio, you get peace of mind and happier customers. Find out why thousands of software platforms and enterprises trust Commio with their communications. Get a demo today.